The story begins when God creates a good world that is brimming with beauty and life. God creates humanity in His image and calls them to rule over the earth on His behalf, to partner with Him in the work of creating and filling the world with His presence and glory. Humanity is made to represent God in creation, to reflect His character in the world. Later we read that the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. In other words, the cultivation and care of the earth is entrusted to humanity. The destiny of creation hinges upon humanity faithfully representing God in the world. But instead of trusting God, we want to rule on our own terms. We reject God's design for our lives and choose to define good and evil for ourselves. We turn away from the source of goodness and life and instead embrace corruption and death. And what we see all around us today is that in the same way our failure to reflect God creates fracturing and pain in our lives and relationships, it likewise brings about brokenness and corruption in all the earth. We have failed in our responsibility to care for the planet. Paul writes that the whole creation has been groaning. It is longing to be set free from bondage to corruption. But how will that happen? He says creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. In other words, if you want to save the earth, you have to transform its broken rulers. This is why the gospel is good news for the earth. God sees that humanity has failed to represent Him and unleashed death in the world. So He becomes one of us, so that He can redeem us from the consequences of our rebellion and reconcile all of creation to Himself. Jesus is the image of the invisible God. And not only does He perfectly represent God's character in the ways that we fail to, He also bears the consequences of our failures in death. Yet it is by the power of His own life and love that Jesus conquered death and rose again. This is why the New Testament describes Him as the first fruits of a new creation. As we surrender to Jesus and follow after Him, He begins the work of transforming us into new people, into authentic, whole human beings who reflect God the way we were made to. Although the full glory of that transformation has yet to be revealed, that does not mean that it has not begun and is not something we are called to lean into here and now. Likewise, although the earth itself awaits a full healing and restoration, as those who have tasted of new creation, we are called to be intentional in our care for the planet today. To do so is to reflect God's wisdom and love, and indeed to fulfill part of what it means to be human. And yet, even as we endeavor to be good stewards of the earth, our hope is not ultimately in our own ability to fix the planet, any more than it is in our ability to fix ourselves. Our hope is in the definite promise that one day, our King Jesus will return and will wipe away every stain of brokenness and death from our lives and world as He ushers in a new heaven and a new earth.